2, 1. We're live.
Welcome, family. We are here again for another episode of Next Narrative 313. I'm Phaedra.
I'm Patrice.
The one and only Dwayne.
And I'm Richard Grundy. Hello.
All right. We are excited to come to you again and discuss everything from education, economics, political, and pop culture. So I'm going to kick it to my brother Dwayne for the lineup for today's conversations.
All right. So we're going to have a nice little robust conversation how we do. So everything from the Super Bowl and the nuances around it. We're going to take a look at what's been going on Wall Street with the Reddit traders. Big thing, millennials, the first millennials turning 40. And kind of the economic, social, political impact of that as we move forward. Trump and his impeachment. Since we've last gotten together, a lot in pop culture as far as some of the movies that's been out. Gorilla Glue Girl has been still in the scene for everybody. Something that I want to talk about, I definitely want us to get into Clubhouse and its $1 billion valuation. Some saying it was hard earned. Some saying it was, again, on the backs of those who it always is. We'll talk about it a little bit. And then we'll talk about a little bit of Detroit Center stuff around the mayor's race and some other things that pop up. So I do want to start with the Super Bowl first. So whether you watch the game, whether you watch The Weeknd perform at the halftime show, you saw the young lady give the poem, or Jasmine Sullivan or her, any kind of takes of the game or any of the theatrics around the game?
Of course, we have to talk about the fact that I don't think Tom Brady, I'm going to make a controversial statement.
Oh, hot take.
This win was not Tom Brady's win. This was the Tampa Bucks black coordinators and coaches behind the scenes, the defense that helped to win this Super Bowl. So my question to the NFL, with your $250 million donation to fight systemic racism, what are you going to do with your Rooney Rule and hire these black men as head coaches?
You got straight to the. You cut. That's what we call in my my closest circle. We call cutting it fat. Like we just you cut all of it. It just got straight down to the meat. That's what we would have ended up. That's what we would have ended up with if we talked about the Super Bowl. Yeah, that's the main thing. You know, that's the main thing. It was a little bit of chatter about how y'all gonna root against Mahomes during Black History Month. That was a little bit of the chatter, but I think that's a much better angle. What you brought up is a much better angle.
I have my thoughts about Mahomes. Mahomes had my vote last year, but I have some other thoughts about Mahomes. I will say this: you got Mahomes over there, but you had what, 4, 5? You had probably the most diverse cabinet. I'm going to use that phrase in a football team as far as coaches. You had women. You had a predominantly African American coaching staff. Hello. Versus on the other side, you saw the nepotism with who is the coach for Mahomes' team?
Andy Reid.
Andy Reid, who went from Philly to there. Andy Reid's son gets into a tragic car accident, and the next day he's at the Super Bowl. First of all, does your son have the capacity to really lead, or did you just give your son the opportunity? I mean, I'm just saying where we continue to see black men, black coaches who can prove their soul. We can even talk about Detroit, and they don't get these same opportunities. So I love Mahomes, but I have concerns about Mahomes. And my vote was with Ndamukong Suh and the black defensive coordinator over with the Bucks.
Yeah, that's a real good point. That's how we would see if they're willing to make some change, even within their league, right? Because they acting like they're willing to use their league to kind of speak up. But if they really want to make change, we can see that. And also, I'll throw a little monkey wrench in there as well, and I'll stop talking.
No, go ahead.
I know a lot of us were torn with Jay-Z when he kind of stepped in. About that, because we're fans of him and everything he's done, but we were kind of torn about that. Maybe this is time for him he can kind of make up this asterisk or whatever and kind of speak up for the coaches, because again, all of those black 3 out of 4 coordinators were black this year in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So
then you had Mike Tomlin that showed improved, but still he had a great season.
Yeah, he get it done.
You know, I think it's interesting. So I wasn't rooting for Tom Brady. I kind of in my heart. So, you know, I root for Michigan. So I kind of know I've been seeing Tom, you know, if you've been a fan of Michigan football, he been the only thing that, you know, you had to look at for 20 years. So I kind of knew his track record. I knew in the big games, you know, they tend to get it done. I was rooting for Mahomes because, you know, I think this win in the Super Bowl for those black coaches isn't going to give the legs that we would hope for two reasons. One, Tom Brady is the story there. People are going to say, well, no, Tom Brady got that done. So people won't get the props that they deserve. But another take I think that's even more nuanced is I think that just the larger kind of sense of what I was taking from the game, I always take something bigger than just the game. So you had Tom Brady representing kind of the last 20 years. You had this little mixed guy named Patrick Mahomes that's representing something else. We saw this same kind of dynamic play a couple years ago when it was Peyton Manning against Cam Newton. We saw, you know, years before when it was Tom Brady against Russell Wilson. Like you get these interactions where you get the big, great white hope Tom Brady against these little black quarterbacks get there, and you tend to get them every time, even back to Donovan McNabb. Shout out to Andy Reid, who was in Philadelphia. So that's one take. And then my final thing I want to say was, I don't want to downplay the cultural stuff. I think it was dope. I love to see Jasmine Sullivan singing with a little country twang to it. You know, I'm a big fan of the young poet sister. I forget her name. I was just looking at her on the front of the Time magazine. And then to speak on Jay-Z, I think that, so we went from the NFL basically crucifying Colin Kaepernick. Jay come in the mix with whatever he did and however they did it, to where you saw, at least in a symbolism for 2020, we didn't see it no other season, where they want to end racism and give donations, and now you can do this and now you can do that and this. So we have seen the NFL move, at least from a symbolism perspective. They where a couple years ago they looked like the Trump rioters, terrorists, and now they're trying to be in vogue. So I give them props for that. As far as the coaching goes, I think that's where I think the rubber meets the road, because the league as an overall arching organization, I don't think that they can influence what these owners and what these GMs and these relationships they have with people who just don't get those opportunities because of where they're from. No matter how hard they coach, no matter how great they'll be, they don't have those relationships with those people at those levels. And I think that's what's going to be the problem. But how are you going to tell a billionaire owner, go talk to Tyrone, when you already had relationships with other people? So I think that's going to be the tough take. I do want to see a revision to the Rooney Rule, and I think that the Super Bowl was a whole thing.
I want to hear Phaedra.
Yeah,
I'm gonna push back on that. I'm gonna push back on the idea that the NFL being the governing body for what we view as football, not having enough authority to go to owners and say, you need to recruit this many diversity candidates, or you need to come, like, this many of your team members need to come from demographics that look like this. Because when they told them, you need to show me this much in liquid, this much in non-liquid assets, do you know what they did? They went and put together their little papers, and they showed up at that table, and they got what they needed, and they walked away with a team, and they were able to play in this league. Whatever. Same thing with, like, the idea that you are supposed to the morality clauses that they put in contracts. Them owners could probably care less about what their players get involved in, and more so than anything, are probably likely to help give it to them if it's going to help them run faster and catch a ball better. Morality clauses are in those contracts because of the NFL. We are a family-friendly organization. This is played in the households across the nation. You can't have one of the people who are represented on this screen being caught in a brothel or what have you. If I can give you those recommendations, I can also give you recommendations on diversity hires.
Absolutely. And I like your point. But if you look at the research that have been done on the Rooney Rule, we see that hasn't been the case. We see that there have been a call that you at least interview minority candidates along the way. And we've seen that they've gotten an interview, but we've seen that the numbers of hired coaches have gone down. So yeah, those things in the NFL has been in place to do that. But if you look at the length of the Rooney Rule, what people are coming out and saying is that isn't working. So when I say that, I'm not just saying it off of, just off of it to be dope. I'm saying that the Rooney Rule hasn't worked with those things, with the NFL saying we want to see that in place. I
think it's not being enforced. Like the same way our legislative government can come out and be like, all right, here's the law. If our executive board ain't like, all right, let me make sure this is implemented. And then when it's implemented and that there's a truth test about whether or not this law actually plays out, in fact, the way we wrote it, until that happens, there's no true support behind it. You putting it on a piece of paper don't mean nothing to me. If the NFL not going to come behind you and put his foot behind and be like, well, let me hit you with a fine real quick, because I've noticed during the last 8 interviews that you've had for your head coaching staff, not one of the minorities was good enough. Not one, nobody. In the course of this in the history of this organization, you got some teams in the NFL who still haven't seen any diversity hires and will not see any, probably in your lifetime or mine.
I think we're on the same side of the argument. I'm just talking about it from the perspective of what it is, and I think you're talking about from what you would hope for it to be.
Yeah,
I think that we could put a little bit more pressure on the NFL, and if the teams the same way, I think we could put a little bit more pressure on them. I'm not convinced that we are like they're doing everything that they said they were doing, and we're requiring it.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is.
I agree that they're not doing everything that they said they was going to do, and I don't want to make this longer. The only thing I'll add is that we know what's possible from what the NBA has done and how the NBA kind of runs things. Like anything that the NFL has done, the NBA has done, including what they did at the Super Bowl, including, you know what I'm saying, all of those different things as far as coaches or whatever. So I don't know how it happens, because like you said, we are talking about culture and, and people making decisions. So I don't know how it happens, but yeah.
Any other takes on the Super Bowl or any other commotion around it?
I saw a dog throwing that Super Bowl, that Lombardi trophy off of a boat today. I don't know if everybody else got that. Yeah, he threw it to Gronk from one boat to another. That was kind of interesting. Oh, I'll say something else too. We lost a lot of people. Not me, but a lot of people lost a lot of money gambling on the Super Bowl too, because it was not as many points were scored or whatever. Teach you something about gambling. We talk about stock trading later on, right?
Yep.
Right,
This might be a good segue to stock trading. So, we've seen in the last couple of weeks the already volatile 2020 market carry over into 2021. This time it's not a man on Twitter making the market go up and down, but it is people online, over I guess 1 million plus people who are on Reddit who bet against a lot of short stock. Well, let me stop the jargon. Who really made a lot of movement on a stock that really hadn't had a lot of potential.
Can I challenge us to talk about exactly what happened?
Like, yep, and Rich is going to give us the info on exactly what happened.
For sure. Just to get out the way, though, there is a little man on Twitter talking about this stuff, though, called Elon Musk. But go ahead. What are you about to say, Faye? Yeah, he made a couple. He told people, he put up memes and stuff about Dogecoin or Dogcoin, whatever it's called, and then proceeded to buy a $1.5 billion of Bitcoin in the other direction.
And it shot up too. If he still was holding,
yeah, which I thought that was kind of interesting. Oh, you want us to buy the Dogcoin? Pun intended. While you getting the Bitcoin, but what are you about to say though, Phaedra?
So what? Yet again, I feel like our cousins are behind the 8 ball on what just happened in the market and how it can happen again and how it took place. Because what happened was very legal. Let's start there. Like it was super legal and it was strategized. And with that being the case, I want to make sure that we understand on a basic level what happened. So next time we encounter this situation, or if we want to be the market makers, we know how to do it.
So you want to take that, Rich?
Oh no, Phaedra, you about to explain it, right? Oh,
she's lobbing it up. She's lobbing it up.
So I'm gonna just give my take on my opinion on it. Number one, and this is neither here nor there. Well, it's here. It may not be there, but they got the little. Have y'all seen the little icon of the Wall Street bets? What it looks like, the emoji or whatever, the symbol. Google it if you get a chance. He don't look like us. He actually looked like a young Trump. Just Google it. You'll see it's like a little blonde haired guy with sunglasses, and he looks like a young Wall Street guy. But if you look at it, he don't look like us. In my opinion, and what frustrated me is that I think this is our opportunity, our community's opportunity to learn about trading stocks. And I'm one of those people that are trying to learn how to trade stocks. I got enough bad habits. I don't need any more bad habits as far as gambling, right? And it was a little bit frustrating because we have so many people that are putting out good content on how to trade and invest. It's crazy how many. It's a lot of bad content too, but it's a lot of good content.
Well, who are some of those good content creators?
I've been hearing a lot about Chris Sane. I haven't checked out a lot of his stuff. I actually went to school with him, but I've heard no bad things about him. Right. Abacus, which is a group that I'm a part of, Come Up series, Earn Your Leisure, and Dunlap is the truth, and he really preaches discipline. And then you got Wall Street Trapper, which it may sound a certain way, but he's really talking about discipline and making sound fundamental investments or whatever. So you have all these people that are putting out good content. You got I'm on Clubhouse daily, listening to all of this stuff, and talking about how to make sound investments. And then you have this movement of Wall Street bets where they're just pumping stocks that the companies are not fundamentally good companies, right? There's reasons why they're bad. And it's not to take away anything of what their point is of that, which is, I think that Wall Street is really, they're always going to win. They're going to bend the rules or break the rules or change the rules so that they win. But in the reality, retail traders never really book the system, right? We've always you always make your money swimming in stream with whatever the market is doing, what the market gives you, and having the discipline to take out of the market what it's giving you. I don't think our community's fight is the issues or the unfairness of Wall. No, I don't even care about fairness at this point. I care about equity, but it's not about the fairness or unfairness of Wall Street. Our issue has been the lack of education and access to knowledge, right? That's what our fight has been. We got that. Now that we're learning the rules, at least from my standpoint, how I feel, now that we're learning the rules, I don't want you to change them. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to understand this book. I'm not trying to go to the next book yet. I'm trying to understand this entire book before we go to the next one. But I kind of get what their point is. GameStop, go ahead.
I disagree with one point that you made when you talked about fairness and equity. I think that it is both understanding how this works, but then in order to even get in the game, we're not talking about folks who maybe have the monetary capacity, but what about the privilege that some folks already have to immediately engage in that space? So I think that there is a structural discrepancy amongst people who are in the middle class or upper class who, when they are born, their parents set up a trust fund or set up whatever type of fund so that they can dilly and dally in stocks. So not only is there an issue with you have the knowledge and you can play the game, I got to get the knowledge and I need to get the capital to play the game. So I disagree with that one thing. I think that it's both the knowledge and the capital to participate.
Right. So I kind of agree with that. So when I'm talking about fairness, I'm talking about fairness from institutional investors and retail investors. But to your point, when I look at, and I don't know if y'all have looked at the little Wall Street bets, like what the little guy looks like or whatever, what the little emoji looks like. Yep. I'm sure they to me, what I said was they're probably the kids of all of the Wall Street brokers. You know what I'm saying? So they already are in that mix. Like it's not even a real thing. You know what I'm saying? To me, that's just my standpoint. It's not really a real fight. It's like y'all probably already in the mix and know all of these things. And because what they're doing, it was pretty sophisticated. And for us to try to jump on the bandwagon of something that's so sophisticated or whatever, some of us won, a lot more of us lost though. So that's my take on it.
Okay, I want to go back just a little bit to Phaedra's point and to kind of talk about what happened. So to my understanding, a group of traders that have a community on the Reddit app, they found an opportunity on a couple of stocks, GameStop. What was the other?
AMC and AMC is some other stocks like Dogcoin or whatever as well.
Yep. They found some very kind of lukewarm companies that people on the traditional side of the stock game said, you know what? In our calculation of how we move, we're going to bet on this company being short. We're going to short this company. And what happened was they built it up. They built the volume up in that company, and it kind of offset with what the hedge funds had bet against them. So it cost the hedge funds a lot of money. The unique part of it is you had, to Richard's point and to Patrice's point, you had a whole bunch of people who knew how to play the game, who had money to play the game, and knew the nuances of it. And so I do agree, as we talk about fairness in a different way. You know, so you taking a couple $100 and you moving it around in this stuff, and people are taking, you know, a part of their trust fund, a part of money that they've earned on other things on it. So there are a lot of different games to be played, but in essence, a lot of very unique. They found a unique opportunity on a company, and it kind of offset what the traditional traders were doing. And I think the biggest takeaway was you just had a united front of small guys playing the same games, it's like a 1-16 matchup in an NCAA tournament. And you know, at halftime they got the lead. So
so just to add some context to that though. So education will tell us that the media kind of directs us as far as where to invest in, and they kind of make up these narratives, right? So Wall Street Bets, they did start this movement. However, there were also institutional investors that were moving along with Wall Street Bets and making way more bread than we made. Goldman Sachs, everybody that you can think of, they were making way more bread. So there was I think 3.8 billion or 2.8 billion that was lost on the short side. But there was also other people, and it's like if I got a business and he got a business and we don't like each other, and I might want to try to put him out of business because we're so privileged that we don't care about putting each other out of business. You feel what I'm saying to you? Like in our community, you put us out of business, that's going to be a serious issue. That's going to get physical. But they are so privileged.
It's just about the game.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's what it is. So I think those are the things as well, and I think that's where education comes in, like knowing like retail traders really can't, they can kind of get a couple wins, but the movement isn't going to be this big. The other part too, I'm going to say this as well. It felt like a Ponzi to me. I didn't been around enough Ponzi's or whatever. And they got legal Ponzi's. Like somebody,
American Breeze. I'm with you.
Yeah, somebody's going to end up holding a stock that's not worth it. That's fundamentally not, the company is not worth it. And I've never been able to get rid of that bag quick enough. I'm always the one holding it anytime I've ever rolled the dice. So I might as well, I feel better betting on Mahomes or Tom instead of AMC or GME. That's just me though.
I hear that. I think and my last point on it is, I think what I loved about what you said was you made a really good point earlier. You said, how trading is done is people ride the wave. And you mentioned it again. People made a lot of money off of that. Who weren't the little guys with the Reddit team. No, the major institutions made a lot of money too on the back end. So you're right about that. Any other takes on it?
Really quickly, I want to read this definition for the cousins. Reddit investors were able to amass this amount of wealth because they attempted to provide a short squeeze. This happens when a share price that was expected to fall actually rises, and the short sellers have to buy back the stock to fulfill their obligations, driving the price up further. So what Reddit users did was they inflated the price of the GameStop, AMC, and Dogecoin prices. When they inflated those costs, all of the big hedge funds that had bet against those separate stocks had to pay back not only what they owed, but the now increased price of the stock. So for a stock like GameStop that was $30 when it was shorted and went up to $330, now everybody who shorted it got to pay that money back. And if you bought it when it was inflating the price, you get that money back at a multiplication factor of whatever it was when you bought in. If you bought in at $60, if you bought in at $120, that multiplies every time by however many people shorted it. Now, they were able to do this, back to Dwayne and Richard's point, because many of them have insight into the investment world. Many of them were aware that GameStop, AMC, and Dogecoin's funds have been shorted. And that's because they're friends or colleagues or children of the hedge fund like leaders. So with that being said, we already know there's not a ton of us in those spaces, but if you do have them, I place the onus upon you to have a couple conversations. If nothing more, just to understand what they do on a regular basis. Because the idea that you having a regular dinner conversation that is very much so legal, it's not insider trading, for a hedge funder to be like, oh, okay, I think that you should short this stock. I'm advising everyone in my portfolio to do that. So now you know that your hedge fund trader who trading $2.4 million or whatever the case is, he has that much money going in this way, going in that direction. You can make other decisions based off of that knowledge. So be aware of what is happening and how they legally are doing stuff like that in our market when it comes to taxes and all of that stuff. I'm ready to transition. I just wanted to make sure I had
Hey,
that.
that put the bow on it. That's exactly. Hey,
I just want to add one more thing. That's game stocks. That look at that. That don't look right. Why is it going up and then coming down like that?
It looks like a Christmas tree.
That's how it's supposed to be, folks. You feel me? All right.
That made me think of something like think about. So we knew how GameStop was impacted by COVID. They were closing a ton of stores over last year. I just want to know, to Phaedra's point, how did they? Who knew the insight that they had that company on the short like that? Like that's the unique part. So, that's a good transition to I think our next topic. I saw early this week an article, and I believe it was the Wall Street Journal. The first of the millennial generation is turning 40. Turned 40 in between the 31st of December and January 1st. Which is marking a changing of the guard as far as this young upstart generation that 10 years ago people were trying to figure out how they were going to change the world, and to where our generation has come now. I am on the beginning end of it. I'm not 40 yet, but I will be in a couple years. And so it's interesting to kind of look back and look forward through the lens of what's going on in those years. And I think even more importantly, kind of how we've been able to make our place, being, young Black millennials, I guess not as young, the ones getting 40, but Black millennials in society, in business, in politics, etc. So we can spin it kind of however you feel led on it.
I'm scared. I don't want to turn 40. and I'm a long ways away, but it's when you sit this out, I was like, dang, really? The first millennials getting ready to be 40? Like, pause. I have to reflect on that. There was so much tension, both good and bad, around the millennial group in our culture, like so much fascination. But millennials have that unique experience of having some still playing in the sandbox and still engaging in social media. Like we've got that nice mix, who the current success pop stories are, and then you can still listen to Boyz II Men. So we're like in that nice little cadre. I don't think we've really hit that mark yet. And we know from a BNE perspective that we were experiencing that at this turn of the century, there was going to be a time to make your mark and to change the story, right? Like we talked about 1968 and the way young people changed the story in 1968 to where you now had a lot more of the Black Power movement. But we're in that same space right now where there is this tension around what is the story going to be. And, Brother Trebian would talk about that. And I think that millennials, I think we've started to change the story a little bit, but I'm wondering, where is it going to stick? Where is our story going to stick? What will the story of our generation really be?
What's the story of our generation right now? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I think that it's our unique value is that we are that intersection generation. Like, and for those of you who don't know, the millennial age bracket is from 1981 to 1994. Some studies will say 96, but we're gonna stop at 94. I was born in 92. So I'm at the tail end of that. But I think one of the most unique things that I have envisioned from my generation is that we are able to solve so many of those pre-1980 issues with technology and innovation, of being exposed to the internet and transitioning through the phases of internet. Like, we remember dial-up. And later on, we're going to talk about Clubhouse, which is literally just a souped up AOL chat room. I ain't going to call no space, but that's what it is. And for everybody who's amazed with Clubhouse, we started from the bottom with AOL chat rooms, and now we are here. Let's be clear that that was the progression. But I think that as millennials, technology is really where we're going to be able to make our mark. The things that we are going to transition to with quantum computing and sharing all of your information across all of these infrastructures, especially with the differences that were made to our lifestyles as a result of COVID, everything going virtually, that innovation. There's so many people who are above us who don't know how to pivot, and so many people who are after us who are so used to technology that they don't have the critical problem solving skills sometimes because they have never had to address that issue without technology. So now we get to kind of bridge that gap for them, and I think that that is really where I'm excited to see us come up. Like, how is technology for millennials going to change the beauty industry? And how is it going to change fashion? How is it going to change how we rear our kids, educate them moving forward? And I think technology is that spot.
Yeah, so it's funny you said that, because the question I was going to say was, what is our story? And I think part of our story, and I don't know if I'm going to stick on it that long, but like, we had to go through the recession, COVID, like a lot of different things. We had to kind of survive and figure out how to navigate through those things. And technology really helped us because we were able to create streams of income for ourselves. But I agree with you as far as technology, as well as because we're the last generation that kind of had both the best of, both worlds or whatever, of the analog or, actually doing stuff outside, but also discovering technology and creating technology together. I wonder if it's funny because earlier I was thinking about, I listen to Club. I'm one of those people that listen to Clubhouse a lot. And I heard Facebook just created a Clubhouse clone too, but whatever. But I was thinking, like, man, like, there's going to be so many technological advances, and there are going to be some jobs that disappear. And it's like, I listen to all these people that are trading, that are making money off of trading, and it's like, how will we earn income? You know what I mean? And trading and investing may be a huge part of that, in addition to whatever we can do, whatever we can do to work. But there's going to be jobs that disappear, and people are still going to need to be able to make some type of money. So maybe that is investing in technology as well to complete tasks or whatever. So, but yeah, I'm interested to see, what happens or how we end up, how we're defined outside of like the recession and all of that stuff.
Okay, that was some really good takes. I got to take, so I kind of define how our story of the millennial generation in kind of 4 dates. 1, 2001. So think of like Y2K and 9/11, how many of us came into adulthood in a totally different world. Kind of similar to how the kids are coming into adulthood, into technology in COVID. Like, it was a totally different world. You don't go to the front of the airport. You don't do this. You don't do that. And it was just a new way of living. Another one, 2008, the crash of the markets. Obama won the presidency, and the rise of social media. Facebook, Twitter, the thing that really started to define who we are. The next one I think was 2016. 2016 kind of showed our generation that those people from the 50s and 40s that we thought were long gone, they still here, and Trump brought them here. And then 2020 is the last one, because that's where we are. COVID and how it's further altering this generation. Another thing that I'll throw in there, I think our generation will be defined by the issues that we've had. So student loan debt for a lot of us. And I think we're going to see, and in our lifetime, as we get to our 80s, a lot of us won't have paid it off, and it would have been solved. Around healthcare, issues around family. Like, there's going to be so many things we're going to be known for, because we got the brunt end of the stick of a lot of stuff. Baby boomers kind of fixed the system up, left it all for us to kind of deal with, and left Gen X in the middle. So I think our generation is known for a lot of those things, and I think it'll be interesting, as especially the younger end who didn't have to see as much as the brunt as us on the front end, get a chance to really take it. And then they got Gen Z on their heels, that's gonna take, and my kids are a part of that generation, that's gonna just take us further than we've ever been.
Yeah, I did hear that the next crash will be because of the student loan debt. But if that's the case, mine gonna crash right with it, because unless Biden is being, and hey, that thing gonna be outstanding and defunctioning and everything else you can think of. So
Listen, y'all have got it in service, okay? I have given more than enough to the community. I have helped more than enough little souls get off to college. They are going to do great things in the world. That is my student loan payment.
I hear that. I hear that.
Dwayne, your breakdown was great.
Yes.
It was fantastic.
I'm working on a project on that too. No,
Okay. Also, but you don't know my struggle. I'm a 92 baby. We went through that trauma. Like, think about it. Y'all were a little bit older. It was easier to explain. I didn't understand why in 2008, when Obama won the election, it was no longer okay for me to be in Bloomfield, like on the weekend at night.
oh
And
wow.
I went to a program called Horizons Upward Bound, which was
UB
in Bloomfield. Like, it's at Cranbrook. And me being able to be at that program really exposed me to the city. And of course, Bloomfield has stuff that Detroit doesn't. But my mama legit was like, no, baby, y'all, you and them kids from Pontiac can't go to Bloomfield right now because them people are mad.
Wow.
I was like in 8th grade. This is stuff that I have been exposed to my entire life, and now completely changed. It was a little bit easier for you to be explained to. I was completely blindsided, and I think, to your point, we're seeing that exact same thing now. And there's a parallel that I want to draw to the New Deal and what Franklin Roosevelt did, and how we see all the changes that are going on in our.
I'm definitely here for that. Yep.
But I do not want to chop up where we were segmenting to.
Phaedra, I do want you to speak on that.
No, yeah. Listen, this is equal play. Spit on it.
So, okay. For those of you who don't remember, after the Great Depression, Franklin D. Roosevelt was like, I need to stimulate the economy. So that is where you see the installation of the New Deal. That is where you see Section 8 housing, food stamps, Medicaid. I always get these mixed up. Medicaid or Medicare, not the old people one. Well, actually both. Old people one and the poor people one. The indigent one and the elderly one.
Yep.
Please excuse me. My horse just came running down the stairs. But all of that was because Franklin D. Roosevelt realized that, we've just experienced a mass depression. I need to stimulate the economy. So what we're seeing today is our government trying to do the same thing. Like, even though like COVID shut down the world, I don't think we haven't seen the mass implications as many other countries have seen, because we're America and somehow we insulate ourselves from that. But with that being said, our economy is now trying to jumpstart itself. So you see all of this money that's being pumped into the city. So you see PPP loans, you see unemployment, you see Section 8 housing and adult care facility stipends increase. So if you pay attention to what the CARES Act actually paid for the first and the second time, $6 billion went towards government subsidized housing. Because you have all these people who the government was housing over time and paying for-profit entities to house them, and they have to make sure that they get their money back. Because if they can't, realistically, our economy is driven by mom and pop shops. Yes, big business really is what drives it, but our ability to consume, if you are not able to pay, if you don't have any liquid income in your household to buy toilet paper, groceries, which is what Pfizer and Procter & Gamble own. Hold on one second. Parenthood, y'all. It's going on right now. Like, it don't stop.
I can jump in if you need a second.
Go ahead.
Okay. And so, that was a very interesting time in our history. And I think that there was a lot of good that came from it as far as the United States. But it was another thing for our folks. And I think we saw another version. I won't go too far. I'll let Phaedra jump back in with the after Great Depression FDR plan.
Okay, so where I wanted to jump in is history repeats itself over and over. So what I want us to keep in mind about what happened with the New Deal, with all of this money that's being pumped in, the fiscal and financial policy did not change. Keep in mind that the way we are taxed has not changed. There's been some increases, but what we're taxed for, what we can write off, it has not changed. So be strategic in how you're investing this money. Real estate is still king. And guess what? It is dirt cheap right now. And as we mentioned, we're getting ready to experience another bubble, another pop. Y'all felt that a little bit in August. So cousins, it was a whole bunch of money floating around August. Christmas was real sweet. January rolled around and y'all got hit with a little bit of reality.
People was waiting for that 6.
Okay. You now have tax time and you have a second round of PPP funding and unemployment coming up. Real estate is king. Invest in as much land as you possibly can. With as many people coming out of COVID, there's these foreclosure crisis, foreclosure, what is it called? Foreclosure moratorium are now extinguishing. So you see a lot of stuff coming off of the tax rolls from municipalities. Buy land around you. You can write off both what you purchase, what you pay for the land, the taxes that you pay for the land, and any investments or upgrades that you make to the land. Invest in Bitcoin. If you can't get it at $30 a share, figure out how you're going to buy one share over time. Contrary to popular belief, the fiscal policy hasn't changed. However, but your president just turned around and stated that he's going to get rid of paper money and he's going to transition to a digital currency. That means that we need to become very accustomed to managing our money and our wealth in a virtual world. So those are the nuggets I wanted to share.
I got some questions and comments.
Shout out.
That was awesome.
Yeah, we there.
So I like that you mentioned Bitcoin because that is how I've heard that. So retail, so we kind of drove up the price of Bitcoin a couple of years ago, but now it's institutions that are driving it up because of a lot of stuff that you did as far as possible inflation and stuff like that. And they just get a better return with Bitcoin. So they're driving that up. That's why Tesla put in all that money in there. I hear Apple is about to do that. And it's crazy that all the banks were, kind of crapping on Bitcoin. And now all of them are buying all type of Bitcoin. So like that makes a lot of sense. I'm glad you said that. You said real estate was dirt cheap right now because it's like at all-time highs. I have heard that that we need to buy it just in case because we don't know what's going to happen. But can you kind of expand more on that?
Real estate is at all-time highs where the government is
pressing
investing its money. So like specifically, if we're talking about Detroit strategic. Oh, that's Prince. The Strategic Neighborhoods Initiative, it is a map that you can get off the city website, and it tells you where the city is investing its money. So the city has its own funding that comes from federal. And then in addition to that, every time a for-profit entity comes into one of the neighborhoods, so like Amazon buying the state fairgrounds, they have to go before city council. And city council also has to answer to the mayor. So now city council and the mayor say, guess what? You're going to buy the state fairgrounds. Our strategic neighborhood initiative is going to run 8 Mile to Woodward.
Yep.
So we're going to invest in that neighborhood. You're going to invest in that neighborhood, and then it's going to generate wealth. It's going to cause people to want to move here because there will be jobs and there will be houses.
Yep.
Those houses are very expensive because that change is happening right now. The change is going to happen in 5 to 10 years. So what we saw in 2008 when the crash happened and people was able to buy bundles, that foolishness that we're dealing with now with the land bank and its creation, you're going to be able to buy land like that again. After that, after the city has invested in state fair and things like that, you have to look at where it makes sense to invest next. Russell Park, Narden Park. They've already started investing in Island View because FCA has built property over there.
Yeah.
What are the neighboring areas that you can get on because it's going to spread just like a river. There's going to be streams that break off from it. Yep. Keeping in mind that impact happens over time. Again, the last time we're about to see an economic surge. We're going to go through a depression because our money ain't worth nothing right now because we just printed more of it. We couldn't afford to not spend, so we made more money, which made the value of money go down. Look at the implications of what happened to the country 10 years after the New Deal was passed. That is exactly what is getting ready to happen again. You're going to have a rise in development, a rise in skilled trades, a rise in international trade, and it's all going to be easier. However, people still need places to live. And contrary to popular belief, rich men don't like paper money. They like money in assets. You know what maintains assets? Real estate.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to provide more context to that New Deal piece because Dwayne talked about the way it benefited one group and it didn't benefit another. And there is a book that I love that speaks directly to the New Deal and even Social Security in the 1930s. And the book is by Ira Katz Nelson. It's called When Affirmative Action Was White. And essentially, the author is basically just demonstrating how federal policies were created and undermine Black community and people of color, but put white folks in a position to win. We know what affirmative action is, right? So essentially, he said affirmative action has been here for a very long time, but it's been in the interest of white folks. And he used specifically how certain policies were implemented, like Social Security, where if you were domestic or did agriculture work, you could not benefit from those policies or those funds. Well, at that time, who did mostly domestic and agricultural work? In the South, it was Black folks, right? So I think we have to Phaedra's and Dwayne's point, be curious about how these policies, will they really set us up for success, or will they undermine us in certain ways?
And I think that's a really good point. And I want to jump in and say, I think 2008 is another kind of example of that. But it didn't last as long because the Democrats wanted to do a different thing. Obama took office in the crash. They passed the stimulus package. He was ready to. They passed healthcare, ready to follow it up with the jobs. They lost the House and the Senate, and he kind of was left in a using demand style economic policy, but unable to see kind of rewards from it. And then also, I just wanted to throw in there, even with the Trump tax cuts that kind of threw a lot of the money up. The first round of stimulus last March, so our market is just we just kind of inflated it, and it's gonna pop at some point. And I think that what I wonder from the Democrats is and I don't want to go, it's be a transition. What I wonder is $1,400 checks are dope. $3,600 EITC for children, that's great. But what I really would love to see is opportunities to take this money and take these opportunities and level up from it. The Republicans like to just pull the rug from up under you. The Democrats like to keep you satisfied and pacified. Here you go, take your 14, take this, watch Netflix, go chill while we go do what we do. Right. So we still have to have, like we were just mentioning earlier, that will inside of the will to say, well, out of my 1,400, I'm gonna take 400 and try to put it in the market. I'm gonna try to get with somebody and try to get some land. I'm gonna try to do something. Okay, get Man PS5. He wasn't able to get it for Christmas. Cool, but still do some other shit too. So when this money is dried up and when the policies change, we at least were able to level up. When we saw the market level up, we were able to get a little something to stay in the game, to keep playing it, not just to pacify, because that's gonna end real soon. 2 years usually is when the House is taken from the whoever got the Senate. Whoever got the presidency. So something is going to get it now, and we got to find a way to do that just to kind of connect it. And I wanted to transition, and we can still go, but we're getting on time, to the Trump impeachment. It was on today. We talking about politics. The sister, the rep from the Virgin Islands, murdered it today. Rep Panky, I think her name was. I was watching it with my son when he got out of school. Any takes on the Trump second impeachment? Any takes?
I've been protecting my, as I would say, if one of my good friends, I've been protecting my peace. I don't really pay too much attention to what he has going on or anything related to him.
So, can y'all hear Rainbow?
We can hear, but it's all good.
Yeah, now. You good? Yep, you good.
My ghetto baby. So I understand what the Democrats are trying to do. I do. However, I'm concerned about whether this is the best use of our time and energy right now. We're still in the pandemic. We don't have enough vaccines to get around. For the people who do want to take them, you still got a number of citizens who are still apprehensive about taking it at all.
Yeah.
Which, how do you build herd immunity at that point? What does that look like long term? The rest of the world still not messing with us because our COVID-19 procedures are trash Are we making the best use of our time and resources? Is there other things that we could be like, now that we have everybody in agreement, are we still moving in the right direction for those other things? And the fact that they know it's going to take them 2 full days to present all the arguments about how trifling this man is just like.
I at one point I agree with you on, is this really the best use of our time? But I've been watching the impeachment the last couple of days, and I think yesterday they played a video that was just like, okay, wow. Like, and then today, I think her name is Pazaki. She was sharp in her blue and her pearls today.
Yep.
And
That's
she was
talking about.
oh yeah, I watched her all day today. I was like, come on, girl.
She killed
But her argument was she really laid out the intent, the root of how this thing started, and she even pointed out that some of the websites and the underground domestic terrorist activity Trump was monitoring the entire time, and that there was real intent. This wasn't just we're so hyped that we're gonna break down the Capitol. They were spending weeks and weeks planning and prepping for this. They were intentional about trying to do this work, right? So I think that has to answer to something, and we have to learn to a certain degree from South Africa. When South Africa did the Truth and Reconciliation process after apartheid, you need some truth to this, and you have to hold people accountable. So I think you need to learn how to walk and chew. Yep, you need to pass policies that are going to help get people back on their feet, and you need to let this man know he has no opportunity to run again. Take all his stuff. I'm hoping that the New York Attorney General also goes after him and gets him real good. Like, you are a criminal. If you don't put a criminal down, we can have the same thing that happened in Germany, because Hitler tried the same thing, went to jail, came out. They said, oh, he's fine. And what did he do? It led to what? The Holocaust. So you have to put this guy down, period.
Off of his head. I'm sorry. Is that? I don't know if I can say that.
Oh, yeah.
My bad.
Metaphorically speaking, of course, we
Yeah.
get rhymes around here. You know what? I think those are interesting takes. I think I just want America to see what really happened that day. I think that's what I'm happy about. After 9/11, we watched the videos. We had the 9/11 commission, and we got to see how disastrous it was. This is our 9/11. Somebody attacked, the terrorist attacked. And now we need to deal with it. Now, unfortunately, time could be used to do so many other things. But you want to act an ass for 4 years? Well, we're gonna act one with you for the next couple months until we get this done. So the whole world know, everybody know everything. So I'm happy about that. What I do wonder though, and I've been feeling increasingly more optimistic, is once the framing went from these rioters to these are terrorists, these are people who had a motive, and they were led by this man. I think we could really get an idea of what America does to people who do that. Yeah, they were white. Yeah, they were all this stuff, but America still has control over people who cross the line with them, and that's what I look forward to seeing. Same thing you did with my heroes from the Panthers. Do to these niggas, and then I'll be happy.
Man, exactly. Like, you had a whole COINTELPRO set aside for people like Martin, Malcolm, Fred Hampton, Bobby Seale. You had a whole cadre. The FBI had a budget to go after Black folks in that way, who they deemed to be terrorists. When we know the Black Panthers were feeding people breakfast, were doing breakfast programs that the federal government later adopted
and did right.
So you know what I'm saying? Like, at this point, I think that it is worth. You have to call this out. If you don't call it out, history tells us it leads to greater damage.
All right.
Speaking of history, I want to make a quick transition. As you all know, this is February, the month that we are extra Black. Now, we Black every month of every year, but this month we particularly use it to celebrate all the things that are Black and great about us. Because at one point they didn't allow us to tell our history. We weren't able to share it amongst ourselves. We want to use this month to continue to pass down our traditions, to highlight the things that we want our youth to know and carry on the legacies of those who came before us. With that being said, I want to extend it to my co-host, the opportunity to share one thing that's super important to you or you're excited about regarding Black History Month. For me, my daughter is 7 years old, and in October of this year, we made a calendar that highlighted Black financial wealth. So one of the things that I realized when I was teaching her savings is that there was nothing out here that talked about us as owners. We talked about Black Wall Street, but we talk about how we got burned down. We don't talk about the doctors, the bankers, the financial institutions that existed. So she and I went and did a full history tour where we put together 12 individual months that highlight something different about being Black and being wealthy. So being able to spend, 28 days with her and really just walk through what it means to be Black, what it means to focus on, her innate abilities and celebrating that. I'm really excited that I get to do that this Black History Month.
Well, let me jump on in for a minute. For those who don't know, I was an African American studies major in undergrad, to focus on economics. So, my kids and people around me, we do it 365. So in February, we get to kind of take a break because, we read this is just what we do. So I enjoy just enjoying social media, enjoying what everybody else brings to the fray. Because, I know what I know and I know it's cool. So during February, we just enjoy the things that just happen. Something is on TV or watching our favorite movies or listening to some of Dad's favorite music and some of the jazz and Motown, just all that kind of stuff, hip hop that he can at that age. And we just enjoy the month so much because during the year, even in this July 7th, we're reading about Benjamin Banneker and we're going to write the essay about him and we're going to understand that. We're going to talk about all that. So we do that part. So February, it's like a celebration, kind of like Kwanzaa for us. We just enjoy it and coming off of MLK Day. So I look forward to every year enjoying it with everybody around me. And I love to see how bliggity Black we've been on social media for the past couple of years.
Okay, I guess I'll go. So I think what I want to point out is, or what I think about is like Black history that we've got to witness. And the person that kind of sticks out to me is Big Bad Stacey Abrams. And it would be, we were just talking about Trump, right? With everything that was going on, I was jumping up and down when she was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. I hope she can take this last bit, beat him one last time in something and win that or whatever. But I think we witnessed a lot of Black history, and we'll be able, years from now, we'll be able to see, like that was really a monumental thing. But when I think about, things that I witnessed, I like it's still amazing to me what she's done. So that's one of the things that kind of stick out to me as far as like Black history.
Can we talk? I agree with you. Me and you both love Stacey Abrams. I did buy her books. I've been reading that. And it's so dynamic. One of the things she says is greatness requires a purpose. And so she talked about that in the very beginning of the book. And I think that she looks at, getting one of the major awards that she got. She was like the only Black woman at the time getting that award. But the greatness wasn't necessarily in the accolade. It was in the pursuing the purpose for, in service to others. So she's just dynamic. But I know we're running short on time, and I do want to hit these pop culture topics. And you know how we started off Black History Month with Courtside Karen. So however you guys want to, I just laughed at Courtside Karen. I thought it was hilarious. But I'm wondering, how y'all want to tackle the other popular culture issues of the month.
Transition of the day. So, we ain't just been, following politics. We ain't just been on it tough. And, we've been enjoying culture too. So, through sports and entertainment, we've seen so many things from Courtside Karen and LeBron down in there in Atlanta to the Salt and Pepper movie that came out, Malcolm and Marie, I think it was called, the Gorilla Glue Girl, One Night in Miami, which I watched. So what from pop culture have y'all been on? We'll do a little overtime, but what y'all been feeling pop culture wise?
I'll go first because hopefully I'll be quick. I didn't see the Malcolm and Marie movie yet. I'm looking forward to watching it though. But I did see that One Night in Miami, and emotionally, that was like a roller coaster for me. It was a
Yeah.
good movie, but I had to stop. I was tired. I was exhausted. I mean, we black, we be exhausted just from living sometimes, right? Just day to day. And I think it was just the wrong day when I thought, I'm like, I'm about to enjoy this movie. And it was like, I saw all the things that obviously I couldn't feel it the same way that they felt it, right? But all of the things that kind of frustrated them, and in that, and everything that they were arguing about and discussing, like none of those things were present at that time, but they were kind of present, like overhanging or whatever. And it was a great movie, but it was emotionally taxing to watch it. And I just thought about, like, people be tired, man. We be tired. Folks is tired sometimes. Like, even in something that's supposed to be a celebration, right? It's still things that we have that's hanging over us that we have to deal with and that we cannot remove. So that's my one point on that. As far as LeBron and her getting kicked out that game, that was a crazy. As far as privilege, that was like that was in the dictionary. That's what it looks like.
I do want to tap in on One Night in Miami, and I think what you're saying. First of all, I really hope Regina gets some type of, all of them. The acting was just phenomenal in the film, but the part that I love, because to your point, yes, there was a taxing around. Wow, the main context was social responsibility for these Black superheroes to a certain degree, right? In their own right. So the scene where Jimmy Brown is like, hey, Malcolm, go get some ice cream. Please have some ice cream, Malcolm, because Malcolm X's role was basically fighting with Sam Cooke in the scene and trying to get Sam Cooke to like step up and be more of a political leader. And he's like, look, go get some ice cream. And because Malcolm, being super religious, wasn't drinking or smoking or anything, and they was upset that they had to hang out with Malcolm when they really wanted to celebrate. So I thought it was hilarious, but at the same time, it was very symbolic of the context of the film, is where you want to enjoy something, and yet you can't fully enjoy it because you have the responsibility to make some type of impact with your influence. You know what I'm saying? And Prince agrees with me. He agrees.
I'm here for our K9 babies being real Black, like
just real Black. Yeah, all of that.
I had the privilege of watching One Night in Miami. Actually, to Richard's point, I did not watch Malcolm and Marie because, like, in the description, it said they were arguing. Like my mental health, I was like, this season, you ain't got no nigga, sis. Like, you don't even need to be exposed to that right now. Like, so whereas One Night in Miami, I was like, all right, cool. Like, I'm here for this. I'm here for what this, like, as I'm thinking about what mark I want to make, and as the closer I get to 30, how strategic I want to be in the legacy that I'm building. Where, like, I really admire the fact that this group of men who came together just not only as a result of who they were, but out of true, like, camaraderie, and they held each other accountable. Like, it brought to light that I really want those friendships moving forward. Those are the only kind of relationships that I want moving forward. I want you to love me enough to tell me the truth, but do so in kindness. Because while they wanted women and drugs and alcohol, they sat and looked at Malcolm and listened to him, and shortly thereafter, Sam, who was one who could have been perceived as the antagonist during the movie, turned around and wrote one of the most iconic and timeless songs that we have. So yeah, that's where I am with the movies. How
old were they in that movie?
Who?
How old were they? How
Early
old was
30s.
everybody?
Malcolm was the oldest.
They weren't even 30 because Muhammad Ali made a comment
he was 22. He was 22. Jim Brown was in his late 20s. Malcolm was in his mid 30s. And Sam Cooke was I think he's a couple years older than Malcolm. Or younger than Malcolm, I'm sorry.
Y'all know what I was doing in my 20s? Like, they were giants, kids. Like, I was still on the other side of it in my 20s. Like, to think about, like, what they were trying to accomplish and what they were fighting for at that age. Go ahead, Dwayne. I got one other thing to say about that too.
No, go ahead, take it, big dog.
I just like I like how they were all making their influence in different ways, and Sam Cooke had to kind of like speak about like, hey, this is what I'm doing from the business side, and maybe I have to put on you know what I'm saying, I have to say, I don't know what you call it, but I have to show them another side of me in order to get it done or whatever. But this is actually what I'm doing or whatever. So that kind of stood out to me as well. Their ages and the different ways that they were able to kind of make that impact. And the things like my man was talking about his knees physically, you know what I'm saying? Physically, he wanted to get out of that because he was trying to save his body at that time. So, but go ahead.
Oh, real talk. No, and I'll be quick. One, that movie, it touched me a lot. Like, when do you get a chance to see men kind of sausage make like that? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
getting to the bottom of stuff, issues, what you doing, how you doing it. Like, that was just like, man, like, you know, I look at everything through my son's eyes. Like, I hope that, you know, they can form those kind of bonds with people to be able to do that. And then two, I think an interesting dynamic in the film, just a little more nuanced, is so Malcolm X, the Muslim, Sam Cooke, the Christian former gospel singer, had this kind of thing that they were doing around how they saw the world and how they were going to change it. So when you think about, you know, our community, you know, that especially back then, the Muslim section and the Christian section always had kind of that thing. So I think that was really good in the movie. Malcolm and Marie, I didn't get a chance to see it yet. I saw the clips. I watched a couple clips, and what I thought was unique, and I don't want to bring all that stress into my life either, but what I thought was so unique, one thing that I thought was unique was, you know, being somebody that's been married for, you know, 10 years, as long as I have been, I think it's something unique about how couples choose to share their words. I wonder how it's going to end. Are they going to break up? Is it going to be something crazy? How do they let one another take them there in that argument, and what happens from it? So I'm interested in seeing it from that perspective.
So I will tell you, I'm sorry, Dwayne. I did watch it only because at first I was like, no, I don't want to argue either. And both of my good best friends were like, oh, you got to watch it. And oh, Lord Jesus, I'm telling you, it's supposed to be art though, which it is. When I say that y'all know Chris is trying to take my life. I will tell you, their acting was phenomenal. Like, they acted for real. But it was completely and utterly traumatic. Like, what the heck? Can y'all just hug and get over this? Because when I say they fought it was an hour and 40 minutes of arguing. But it was art. If you like script, if you like cinematography, it was very artistic. So, yeah.
It's gonna be a no for me, dog.
Right. Yeah.
All right, we didn't get to a couple overtime topics, but shout out to Wendy Williams, Salt and Pepper for their movie. We'll definitely talk about Clubhouse. They ain't going nowhere, and the race for Detroit's mayor's office is going to be ongoing, so we'll definitely touch on that. We overtime. I had a great conversation. I ain't seen my peeps. I was texting everybody like, "Hey, I just want to say what's up." I ain't seen nobody, so it's good to actually get together and share takes. I know when we come together, I learn so much. I get a new perspective, and I love to give mine. Any final words as we sign out and get these people back to their night?
Stay black. Stay proud. Happy Black History Month.
Yeah, happy Black History Month.
I don't know. Shout out to LeBron and calling out courtside Karen. Start Black History Month.
Oh, shout out to the Atlanta Dream as well.
Yes.
Shout out to Atlanta Dream getting rid of the woman who ran for the Senate seat and lost just this time. They got rid of her, and the team going another way. So you know what I'm gonna say. Thanks for coming out. God bless and good night. Let's get this money and make a difference. See y'all next time. Peace.
Peace.